Hello, everybody. Lorenz Dean here on behalf of Pro Wrestling Syndicate, and we're here presenting The Business. And here to talk to us about the business of professional wrestling, we're here with Dan. How you doing, Dan?
Doing good, Lorenz. How you been?
Good, man. Thank you
I
for
believe we
joining.
did one of the we did one of these a while back, didn't we? We it's been a
Yeah,
minute.
yeah, a couple of years.
Yeah. Been a few years.
Oh man. So how's everything? How's the weather over there?
Well, it's snowing just over the border in Virginia, and I got back to Kingsport just now, and it's cleared up pretty good, but it's supposed to get down to 24 degrees tonight, so
Oh
we'll see
wow.
what that brings.
Hey, listen, you're definitely doing it. All right, so I want to get started. So let the fans know, before we get into your wrestling background, a little bit more about yourself in general. Want to know who Dan the Man is. That rhymes. Who Dan the
Yep.
Man is. First, tell us about yourself growing up. Where did you grow? Where were you born? Where did you grow up? And stuff like that.
Well, I spent the first 38 years of my life in Memphis, Tennessee. Uh, which any fan will tell you that's an area steeped in pro wrestling. Went to Mid South Coliseum and saw wrestling shows and stuff, and grew up watching wrestling on Channel 5 live on Saturday mornings, and just becoming a wrestling fan over the years and everything. And right now I've got a pretty good job. As you can see, I'm in the van right now, and I'm driving around from store to store fixing stuff. And I've been keeping Walgreens running for the last 24 years. So that's been a pretty good moneymaker for me, and I've stuck with it. And the job's paid in dividends and been getting back to me pretty well. And I'm able to do my pro wrestling stuff in my spare time as well. And it's just a really good all around thing I got going, honestly, right now. Pretty good work life balance, and the work is 8 to 5 with Toshiba right now, and keeping Walgreens running. And then as soon as I clock out at 5 o'clock, I go over and I open up my wrestling school every day. So,
Okay.
and
Where, as far as growing up, was your family, was your dad into professional wrestling, or was just you?
it was really just me, honestly. My dad didn't. My dad didn't really care for too much for professional wrestling and stuff. And he was a construction superintendent for Walgreens, so he was on the road a lot, and I got to travel around a lot. I spent like the first 7 birthdays in different states, like Florida, Colorado, California, um, Michigan, Minnesota, different places, and got to travel around a lot and everything. The ones that really were into professional wrestling when I was a kid were my grandparents. Um, that was my grandfather's therapy, was watching Saturday morning wrestling on Channel 5. That was his time. You didn't mess with grandpa. You didn't mess with the television on Saturday mornings come 11 o'clock, because that was grandpa's time to watch pro wrestling. And that was Jerry Lawler and Jeff Jarrett and Bill Dundee and Jackie Fargo, and just a who's who of wrestling going through the Memphis territories over the years. And but yeah, that was my grandfather's therapy. That was you didn't mess with the TV on Saturday mornings around 11 o'clock. That was wrestling time. And my grandfather was a hard worker, and that's what he wanted to watch in his spare time, and that's what I'm a part of now and everything. And I think that was really where I started getting interested in wrestling, was watching him watch it and watch the reactions that came from him watching it. So
Right. It was like watching. It was like watching comic book heroes in real life.
yes, yes, yes.
Yeah.
It just pro wrestling was life in the '70s in Memphis, Tennessee. It really was. And it became a culture and just a phenomenon through so many outlets and everything, through the news and through the public shows and stuff like that that they would put on and everything. And I mean, it just there. I don't think there was one night out of the week at one point in Memphis where there wasn't a show happening somewhere in the Mid South region, and all the way over to Arkansas, all the way up into Missouri, all the way up into Kentucky, and then down into Mississippi and into Alabama and stuff like that. They touched all points. They drive 4, 5, 600 miles in every direction from Memphis to make those towns and make an area out of it and everything. So, but to answer your question, I really do. I think my grandfather watching it is what originally got me interested and started raising my eyebrows at wrestling. And I think somewhere around 12 or 13 years old, I caught Saturday night's main event, and that was WWF in late 80s, early 90s. Hulk Hogan, Randy Savage, Honky Tonk Man, and Big Boss Man, and all those that wide array of colorful characters that just look like they could just walk right off of the television and into your living room. I got interested. That really raised my eyebrow, and got me really into it, because like I started watching that version of WWF, and then that was like, oh man, this is something. And then that opened the door to me watching all the Channel 5 stuff and all the local stuff, and Lawler and Jarrett and Dundee and Fargo and all of those guys, and really, really cool. Really, really cool, growing up in uh, a lot of pro wrestling history, in an area that was just steeped in it. It was like one of the last WWF territories was actually Power Pro Wrestling, and that was Randy Hales, who I've actually worked for. Randy Hales, is crazy to say. Randy Hales was in charge of one of the last WWF developmental territories in Memphis, and I've worked for Randy Hales. So very, very cool. If you know the history on some things, it's very, very cool to know who I've worked for and versus what I watched growing up.
Right.
So
Definitely going to dive into that. I know you mentioned Saturday Night Main Event. I wanted to pull your leg on that one. Did you have to try to sneak out to stay late, to stay awake late like I had to? It's because your
not on
dad was
Saturdays.
on Saturdays.
Not on Saturdays. That's what was really funny, is like I never really knew when it would come on. It was a roll of the dice. It was like I was younger, so like Saturday Night Live, if it took a week off, I didn't know. If it took a week off and then it got replaced by wrestling, I wasn't sitting there reading the TV guide trying to figure out when it would come on or anything. So, but yeah, just it was a roll of the dice. As soon as as soon as the news would go off at like 10:30, just be sitting there watching the TV on a Saturday night and going, okay, what's coming on? And then it would either be Saturday Night Live or Saturday Night's Main Event, and it was like Saturday Night's Main Event. Oh, the wrestling's on. And then, or, SNL. And it was like, well, maybe I could sit up and watch some skit comedy. Okay.
There you go. Hey, make time go by.
Mhm.
Question. So before pro wrestling, have you ever showed any interest in any other sport or actually got involved in any other sport?
Baseball. Yeah, I played a lot of church baseball, little league church baseball. I actually wound up being an all-star my last year in that too, and got really good at it there for a minute and everything. Had a really bad experience with a coach, and then just my mom was like, "Well, that's enough of that, and we're not going to do that anymore." But baseball, and I did wrestle in high school. I wrestled in 7th grade, and I wrestled again in 9th or 10th grade, I believe. And I never was good at it. I'll be honest. I was not a good wrestler in high school, just like I wasn't a good student in high school. It wasn't my thing. So, and now, growing up, I've got a handle on a lot of things as an adult and everything. And, wrestling is my thing. So, it's like, it's my release. It's my therapy, if you will. So.
Actually, I was going to ask you, but you already started getting into it. What was your intro? Was that considered your introduction as far as into the business? Well, not really into the official business of professional wrestling, but as far as you physically getting involved in wrestling, was that the introduction as far as you wrestling for your school?
That was the first time I'd ever been physical, on the mat or anything with anybody was, that physical introduction into wrestling. Yeah. Would have been seventh grade. So,
Okay.
yeah.
So what would more or less was your actual official introduction into the business of pro wrestling?
My actual official introduction into the business of pro wrestling happened when I was around 22 years old. Um, up until that point, I'd been a fan, and I did a first tryout for a promotion called KAW. It was Kick Ass Wrestling, and
Okay.
I'd catch these random shows that would come on all kinds of hours of the night because at the time I was working third shift. So, my sleep schedule was really, really off. And I'd get home at like 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning sometimes, and I'd turn the TV on. And then randomly, this show starts popping up, this kick ass wrestling. I was like, huh, okay. And they had Bill Dundee on, they had all these different guys on from, Memphis wrestling, but it was more along the lines of ECW. It wasn't a solid, wrestling promotion as far as like technical wrestling and stuff like that. It was more along the lines of like a bar show. And they filmed this bar show and they'd put it on at like 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. And I think just recently they actually had a kick-ass wrestling reunion show and somewhere over near Memphis and everything. And I saw all the guys that were on it, and I was like, "Yep, I remember all those guys." So yeah, but my first introduction into the business was with Tasha Simone and Motley Cruz for a tryout session for them for Kick-Ass Wrestling, and I went in there, and at the time I was with a significant other that did not want anything to do with wrestling and didn't want me to have anything to do with wrestling. And she kind of pulled the rug out from underneath me and told me, "No, we're not doing this. You're not doing this." And I was
Uh-oh.
like, "Okay, well, I guess that's the end of that." So, um, but they did offer me training. There's a lot of times you go into those training sessions and everything, and they'll tell you, "No, I don't think you got it. I don't think, but surprisingly, I had kept my flexibility and I was still thin at the time and could really work out and work up a build and stuff like that because I was 22. So, um, and I talked on the phone with Tasha Simone for like 3 hours after that session and everything, and was talking about anything and everything wrestling. And it made me wanted to do it more, if anything. Being told by somebody, who
Yeah.
you think wants you to succeed and doesn't want you to succeed apparently. So, but that significant other is no longer with me. So she went off and went back to Michigan. So we'll leave it at that. But yeah, they at the time, it just the cards weren't lined right for me to be actually in the wrestling business, and it just didn't line up for me in my personal situation. So um you know fast forward 7 years later, and 29 I decide I got to do this. So and that's when I found Ken Wayne's school in West Memphis, Arkansas, and I was there for the next 4 years, and then off to the races we went, and here I am 16 years later. I'm still in the wrestling business. So
Okay. Okay. Any who were some of the notable figures that you had a chance to work with as far as like in the business of professional wrestling? Who was some of the like how can I say like some of the known figures in business? Like
the
celeb.
first the first one I ever got in the ring with that was very well known was Beautiful Bobby Eaton. And he's actually who our arena over here at NetPro, which is my training school. He's who we named the arena after. It's the Beautiful Bobby Eaton Arena. But the first one I ever got in the ring with that was of real big notoriety was Beautiful Bobby Eaton, and I actually wound up pinning him in a tag team match. So that was like full circle moment. I've had a lot of full circle moments over the years. It's just like, after I get out of the ring or on my way home, and I'm like, how did I get here? So like, how did I get here, man? So yeah, but Beautiful Bobby Eaton was the first one I ever got in the ring with. Bill Dundee, I actually got to wrestle Bill shortly before he retired from in-ring action. I wrestled him in a tag team match. Handsome Jimmy Valiant. I've been in the ring with Handsome Jimmy Valiant. I think Jimmy was 89, possibly pushing 90 at the time, and we did all show and no go, and everybody ate it up and loved every minute of it, and so did I. So and I got nothing but compliments when I got out of the ring from being in the ring with Jimmy Valiant. So then I think that's the top three. There's a lot of other ones and everything. One of my good buddies, Kevin Nichols, who goes by Ivan Warsaw now, and he's actually got his own school over in Rogers, Arkansas. He's one of the ones that was first in the ring with me, actually teaching me how to do stuff. And he actually got signed to FCW before it was NXT. He was Knuckles Madsen in the WWE developmental system, and he's still doing things too, man. He's running and gunning with his own school now, and doing his own promotion as well. Ozark Mountain Wrestling is his promotion and everything. So, but I put Kevin up there in that list of guys that are well known, that I owe a debt of gratitude to. So.
Okay. Okay. And what was some good advice that you received over your years that you still carry till today, as far as in dealing in the business?
Stay humble.
Right.
That is the number one thing. Just stay humble, and stay humble. And just one of my things is just stay humble and be kind. You know, we all don't have to walk around with egos and chips on our shoulders and acting like we're somebody. It's a respect game, and as long as you're respectful in this business, you'll go far. I truly, truly believe that if you're respectful to everybody, no matter what, and you're kind to them, and you're humble, you keep yourself humble. I just as long as you follow kind of into that path and everything, everything's cool. I don't see a problem. I don't see a problem with anybody. I don't have problems with anybody per se. I mean, if somebody creates a problem with me, then they're the one that's created it. I let them create the problems. I don't create the problems. I don't rock the boat.
Right.
You just tell me which direction you want the boat to go in, and we'll get it there. So.
Okay. 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 So take us through. You have your. When did you start your school again?
NetPro started about 2 years ago. It
2
started
years
in
ago.
2022.
Okay.
We signed the lease in November of 2022, and we officially opened the school in February of 23. So, we're right in that almost 2 years of officially being open, but we've officially signed the lease for 2 years. So we're creeping into our third year now, and really, really, we've built a brand. Me and my wife have, and none of this happens without her. So, because that's an important part too. If your partner is not 100% into this, you're not going to be either. So, there's going to have to be some choices made. So, but I think I've 1000% got lucky with my wife, and she's all in on this. She actually operates our social media, does our graphic work, all that stuff. And We've been open for 2 years. We've probably done 7 or 8 benefit shows, along with working with Innovate Wrestling, Pile Driver Pro, Imperial Wrestling, NWA JCP, and NWA main roster. We've gone a little bit back and forth with OVW up in Louisville, Kentucky. Doug Basham has come over and run some seminars in our place. Just, it's amazing the amount of stuff we've done in just a short 2 years. If you'd have told me 2 years ago I'd be doing all this like nonstop 24/7, I'd have been like, man, whew, it blows me away, because I go 2 and 3 months at a time without a weekend off, and I have something going on every day, every week, and every weekend. And people are actually calling me, asking me when I'm free, seeing if it works with their schedule. Because I had a phone call last night to see if I was free on a day, and I was like, I've got a show the day before. Do you need me at your show the day after? And he's like, yeah, I do. And I'm like, crap. So yeah, I've said this a lot lately. I'm like, be careful what you wish for, kids, because if you're good at what you do, you're going to get a lot of phone calls.
Yeah.
I got a question for you. Are you a combat sports fan? Yeah! Whether it's boxing, wrestling, or mixed martial arts. It's all combat sports. So show your support and order the Step Into the Squared Circle merch. How do you do that? It's real simple. Just go to dondavine@gmail.com. That's DONDAVINE@gmail.com. And we're going to need your Cash App name. We're going to need your full name. We're going to need your mailing address and t-shirt size, as well as t-shirt color. It comes in black and athletic gray. And after you're done doing that, you can send your payment to $Don Davine. That's $DONDAVINE. Get it done, because
that's an order.
Okay, so take us from top to bottom, like what it takes to actually have a school, a wrestling school, in case there's somebody out there that wants to build one. Give us in like full details, if you're able to, like from top to bottom, what it takes to start it, to run it, to keep it going.
The first thing is I'll say this. I'm an experienced trainer. There are a lot of people who say I'm not an experienced trainer, but I am an experienced trainer. I wound up running Ken's school the year I decided to come in and turn the keys in and tell him I couldn't come in there anymore, because I wound up running the school and not getting paid. And I was just like, yeah, this ain't gonna work. So, and that was 4 years in that I was doing that. And I was teaching beginners and teaching guys how to bump and teaching guys how to do different things and everything. And there's a process to it. And I've adopted the process that Ken had in place. Ken's school was defunct. He's out, and he hasn't had any, aspirations of coming back into the wrestling business that I'm aware of. But he had his legal troubles too. So I'll just leave it at that. But I adopted a beginner, intermediate, and advanced track as far as learning goes. And, there's a process to where I take you through, it's like those first couple of weeks, you're just going to be learning how to bump basically, and how to take hits, and how to hit the ropes, and how to roll, and how to get your feet under you basically. There's a regiment and everything that I've put all of my guys through just to get out of beginner class. To get out of beginner class, you have to have a 5-minute match in front of people. And it's you either make it the whole 5 minutes and you graduate, or you get cut short and we got to start all over again. And that's just the way it is. I have yet to have anybody fail. I have yet to have anybody just, completely go out there and stink the place up and everything. Shout out to Tony Givens too, because he always gives my beginners their first match in the arena there that we train in front of his shows and everything. So Innovate Wrestling, Tony Givens, he always works with us and works our guys into the card and everything, and gives them a really good, start to things and everything. And he's flipped it around on me a couple of times. It's like, you guys are like top notch. He goes, you have yet to have a guy have a bad match in here. And I'm like, don't curse me like that. Don't put that evil on me, man, because it'll happen. I know it'll happen eventually, but yeah, I can't say enough about Tony. He's been we actually use his ring for training, and we do the upkeep on it as a kind of a trade-off and everything. But to start, you got to have a regiment in place. You got to have some teaching in place and everything. You also got to have that experience level. I didn't stop at 4 years teaching. I went on my own and went to shows early and was training guys in the ring early. When I was booked on a show, I'd always be like, hey, do you have some guys that want to work out and learn some stuff? I'll be there early if they want to pull me to the side, and we'll go through some training and stuff. And so that led on to other things and everything. I took a break from in-ring and went to commentary and announcing for a couple of years. And then we moved over here to East Tennessee. And I realized in East Tennessee, there was absolutely nobody that worked or wrestled like me. And I realized it was a totally different planet from the other side of the state. It was totally different from Memphis. The mindset was different. And I realized that what I know is marketable information. I was trained in a way that nobody else was trained. And if I can take that and just spread that, then I've done my job of putting my knowledge out there. So it's kind of like, the magic formula, and you want everybody else to have the magic formula because you don't want to be the only one with the magic formula. So
okay.
But yeah, I've you got to have that regiment in place. You got to have there's processes to it, and I always tell my guys, trust the process. I was like, because you're gonna come in here one day, I'm gonna be looking at you and I'm gonna be going, yep, he's ready. Because like everything finally just fits together and it clicks together, and the guys or the gals, they're putting everything together on their own, and I'm just like, yep, they did it. I have a gal, and that's another thing is like everybody asks like how quick does this take? How quick does this take? And I'm like, well, that depends on you. And it's like I'm not Dr. Tom, I'm not Cody Rhodes, I'm not Dustin Rhodes, I'm not all these other guys that say, okay, come in for 12 weeks and I'll hand you a certificate. I don't do that. It's like you come in here and you train consistently, and then I tell you when you're ready, and then we have a match, and that's the process. And the process past that is you come in after you've done the beginner and I teach you more. So you don't learn when you get out of beginner, 4 basic moves. And that's body slam, hip toss, arm drag. I teach you chain wrestling, and I might teach you a suplex, depending on what you want to do. And there's some guys that, they jump into other things before they have that match, because that match, between the time that I decide that he's ready for that match and he actually has that match, there's a big gap of time. So we might fill that with learning and filling in some other things and everything. One of my guys did a crossbody off the top rope in his first match, and I swear to God, he could have changed a light bulb. He jumped so high into the ceiling. I've got a picture of it, and I love showing people it. I'm like, he's way up into the ceiling, and the guy standing in the ring like way down here. So yeah, I loved every minute of it too. I was like, man, he did that in his first match. That's great. So, but yeah, my guys always amaze me, and I try to stay positive with them because there's so much negativity in the wrestling business. There's going to be plenty of times when those guys go to shows and they get raked over the coals for doing something they shouldn't have, or they hear from an old timer that everything they did sucked or whatever. It's like I take a positive approach, and I start looking at stuff and everything. I don't holler and cuss at my guys unless they legitimately piss me off, and I think I've only been legitimately pissed off like once in the ring in the last 2 years when I was teaching. So but yeah, I try to take that positive approach instead of saying, well, that sucked, that was terrible, or whatever. I go, yeah, that happened. So so yeah, but try to stay positive, because like I remember when I was coming up and was 3, 4, 5 years in, I would come to the back and I knew it was a terrible match. I knew I would have a terrible match. And it wasn't like, you could go and have a terrible match on a Saturday and make up for it on a Sunday or a Monday. Saturday nights were the only ones that were running shows. So you had to wait a whole other week to do another show and think about that terrible match you had all week. And sit there and go, man, I so want to get back in the ring and make this up. It's like, I got to get better. I got to get better. So, there's that torture, that mental torture of waiting a whole other week to get in the ring again and try to do better. So, with all that negativity and with all that mindset and people, I always tell my guys, you're going to be your biggest critic. You are going to be your own biggest critic because you're going to watch stuff back now. You're going to go, well, that sucks. I'm never doing that again. Or, that whole match was terrible. I need to tear that thing apart and just, never do any of it again. So there's so much of that in your own head. And then on top of that, you got guys that, are negative about it or whatever, and they're in your head too. I try to just take a positive approach and just be like, look, this is what you could have done different. This is how you do this and correct this. And, I feel like guys progress better that way. Negativity makes people quit things. It just straight up does. It makes people not want to touch it again. It makes people want to go home and just, sell their gear. And, I don't want that. I want people to go after their dreams. So, but that's my whole mindset when I'm training guys anyway. So.
Okay. Well, let me ask you, has there ever been anybody that walked in that your actual school and you just looked at them and you said, that person has an it factor? What that is, I don't know. We have to see once things start moving, but something about that person, just by looking at them, even before they actually take a bump in the ring, you looking at them and you like, if I don't place him or her in the ring, he or she is going to be doing something in the business. There's just an it factor about this person. I can't call it. Has there ever been something?
I've had one or two do that. I've had one or two walk in and do that. And then, what kills me is they walk in, they do the deal, they kill it. They absolutely kill it. And then turn around and they don't want to do it anymore.
Man.
And it's not like I said, it's not always a matter of drive or interest in doing it. The drive is there, the interest is there to do it. It's the time or the timing of it, personal business gets in the way a lot of times. And I tell those guys always, I was like, dude, pro wrestling ain't going nowhere. Pro wrestling's always going to be here, and it's like, if you've got personal issues or whatever that you need to, take care of or whatever, go and take care of them, and then come back. Pro wrestling's still going to be here. It's like, 2-3 years down the line when you want to get back in the ring or whatever, come and see me. It's like, I don't hold anybody, oh, you've got to do this or whatever. It's people's personal decisions to get into the wrestling business, because there is a lot of sacrifice. There's a ton of sacrifice to this. And like I said, I am so lucky my wife is down for, this much sacrifice, because we do, like I said, we from now, let's see, let me think here. I want to say since 2 weeks ago, all the way into the second week of January, I have something every weekend. And I'm talking Christmas weekend too. Okay. Christmas weekend, the weekend before Christmas, I actually have 2 shows. The weekend after Christmas, I have a show in my building.
Really?
And yeah, and that's going to be the Innovate Wrestling show for this month. And then you go January 4th, we're having a benefit show in my building. And then I have a weekend off, and then the weekend after that, we're back into Innovate Wrestling at my building again. So, it's few and far between. There's a ton of sacrifice if you're going to get into the wrestling business. You're going to sacrifice a lot of your personal time, and it's just, that's just the way it is. That's the nature of the beast. Somebody called me the busiest man in professional wrestling the other day, and I was like, I don't doubt that one bit.
You know something funny? When I used to have my own promotion, people that knew me growing up, they always used to tell me, wow, man, what does it take to actually get involved? I want to be a promoter. I want to actually wrestle and stuff like that. Cause I too was also connected with a school. And then I used to always ask them a question just to hear that buzzword. There was a certain buzzword that they all say to let me know whether they love the sport for the right reason or the wrong reason. So I was like, okay, go ahead. Tell me what you love about the sport. Oh, I grew up watching it. So I was like, okay, keep going. I always wanted to do it, but I never had the time to. And then plus, they make a lot of money. I said, okay, the money part. I said, you're in it for the money. Work at McDonald's. You'll make more money working at McDonald's because you'll probably losing money. I said, you'll end up losing money before you start making money. I said, having love for the sport is actually the foundation, because the thing is, while an outside person consider it losing money, it's actually your way of going to college and learning. Once you start doing things and fixing issues that was causing you problems to lose the money, and you're not doing that anymore, you're actually becoming a better promoter down the line. So it's like an educational process. If you have love for it, you're not looking at it as losing it. You're actually winning because you're learning every step of the way. So every now and then when somebody asks me that, I wait for that buzzword, the money, and I said, I said, no, you're in it for the wrong reason and stuff like that. So it's just,
It's like you said, it's a process, man. And it's taken me 16 years to get to this point to figure this process out. Honestly, it's like I've been with other companies, I've been with other schools. They've made mistakes, huge mistakes, personal mistakes, personal choices to, and it just, I realized that, probably about 2 years ago, 3 years ago, I realized right before I created NetPro that I was not going to change the business the way I wanted to change the business under somebody else's banner. I had to stand on my own 2 feet to make the changes that I'm making, and try and push that out there. And I'm pushing it out there, and so far the reactions have been great. It's like I even tell my guys, I don't care where you go after you graduate beginner, but get paid. I don't care if it's $20 or if it's $120. Get paid, because you're owed something for putting your body on the line. I don't care what a promoter tells you. You're owed something for putting your body on the line, whether it be enough money to cover your gas to and from the building, or whether it be a little bit more because the house was big that night. It's the premise of you're owed that, because you went out there and you helped put that show on and you put your body on the line. And that's what I always tell them. It's like, if you're going to work for free, only do it once. It's like, because it's an introduction to, this is me, this is what I do. Okay.
Right.
And if you can get that crowd going, then they'll have you back and they'll pay for you to be there.
Yep.
And, that's what I always tell my guys is like, the first one's always free if they want a first one for free. But after that, you can tell them, hey, look, I got gas, I got expenses, I got to get to the building. Um, but yeah, that throws it into, a lot of schools have promotions. I'm not a promotion. I work with 4 or 5 other promotions in the area. Why would I want to be a promotion?
Right. So
you know,
that was leading me to my next question, as far as if you
yeah,
if you have a promotion and stuff like that.
yeah,
Okay. So your focus is on building other promotions and making them better.
yeah. I want to make wrestling in general better. I don't want to just put a product out there that is my product and say, oh, I'm better than everything. No, I want to make every promotion better. And by doing that, the way you do that is you put out better wrestlers. So, you can make a show tons better by making the wrestler better. And like I said, the Northeast Tennessee, this area is it's already flooded with shows. There's not a weekend around here that you can't find a show to be on. And they're not always the best shows. They're not all going to be the best show on the planet, but it's a way for my guys to get out and get that experience. And unfortunately, a bad experience is still experience. So bad experiences and good experiences, they're both at the experience level. So you get experience level from both of those. So but one of the mistakes that I've seen made is that a school will make a promotion, and then the next thing you know, that school's promotion takes priority over all of the other promotions in the area by the trainers, and they're like, oh, you've got to be here, and it's like, well, I was booked down the road for this other guy who, he's going to pay me and do this and that and the other and everything. Is like, but me working with Tony, that puts my guys on the spot too, though. So, they get to come in and work in their school for a promotion that's, not me, and they get eyes on them that are not me telling them, oh man, you're great, you're awesome, you're fantastic, or, don't ever do this again, this sucks. So, it's like what I'm telling them either gets reinforced or, they get told, don't, I have no interest in you or whatever. So, I welcome all opinions. It's that whole flavors of ice cream thing. It's the flavors of ice cream stuff, that's the metaphors that have been thrown out there for years. It's like, you may like chocolate, I might like vanilla. I like chocolate and vanilla. I like Neapolitan. I like chocolate, strawberry, and vanilla all put together. So, it's like, it's all a matter of opinion. And sometimes that opinion matters more than the other ones that they're giving it or whatever, and that's the navigable thing too, is like, you got to figure out who's giving you good advice and who's giving you bad advice. So, and I kind of like to be that filter too for my guys.
And then too, something that you mentioned is, and this is from experience too. I've witnessed different promotions that have schools and stuff like that. Is the politics of, I don't want my guys going with these people because the people that's running this promotion has issues with this other promotion. And then now
Yes.
students are, and sometimes I've seen students from one promotion are actually cool with other students from other promotion, but they can't do business together. Oh shoot,
Yeah.
sorry. They can't do business together because of the politics. And that
Yes.
sucks. And that really,
Yes.
really sucks, because
And that only hurts the kids. That only hurts the
Right.
guys. So, I
Right.
mean, there's no sense in playing politics on that level. There's absolutely none. The ones that I tell my guys not to go to are the promotions that actually book a criminal element on their show, and like known criminals and stuff like that. I tell them, stay far away from that promotion, because they obviously don't care what they put in the ring. So
100%. 100%. If it's
and
not,
unfortunately, there's more than one show around here that does that.
no, you guys are not the only one. I'm up in New York too, and it's that's a long
Yeah.
story, but I understand. Once you mentioned that, I was like, yeah, gotcha. Okay, so now the educational process, as far as in professional wrestling, and dealing, we're still sticking with the business. Do you think the best education happens in the ring or it happens on the road?
Both,
Both.
both. That's 50-50 there. That's 50-50. Um, those two elements go hand in hand with one another, because you get on the road and you're going to find out what worked in East Tennessee doesn't work in West Tennessee. What worked in Southwest Virginia is not going to work in Eastern Arkansas. You got to get on the road and figure out what works where. Good little metaphor I've got for that. I used to draw a line right through the center of Tennessee, and everybody above that line, they didn't give a shit about wrestling. They wanted to see a fight. It's like, it didn't matter if I went out there and flipped 9 times and jumped on a guy and splashed him. It didn't matter. If I went out there and I started hauling off and punching a guy, the crowd would go absolutely nuts. Okay. They didn't care about wrestling. They wanted to see a fight. Now, everybody below that line, I could wrestle there. It was, oh man, I can wrestle here. I love coming to this show. I can wrestle here. They care about wrestling. The crowd responds to wrestling. So, and I always knew what I was getting into when I went above that line or below that line. So yeah, and it's totally regional, which kills me. I'm like, I'd go to New Bern, Tennessee, and they'd want to see a fight. I'd go to Selmer, Tennessee, and they love to see wrestling. So yeah, it's 2 different sides to a coin, and that's part of getting on the road. It's also part of getting in the ring. You learn your lesson while you're in the ring, because you're doing stuff and the crowd's not responding, so you got to change it up on the fly. So that's the thing. It's a 50-50. It's a mishmash of being on the road and being in the ring. So
what's your feelings on the art of storytelling? Because I've interviewed a lot of the legends, and one of the common things that they say, as far as in the current product, whether it's WWE, TNA, AEW, whatever, the art of storytelling is gone.
Mm-hmm.
Do you still hold on to that as far as when you teach?
I think it's coming back. I honestly do. With the recent changes that WWE's made to booking, right. I think they're bringing it back. I really do. Now, the thing is when you get on a local or an independent show locally here that doesn't have production, that's not recording stuff, you have to be there live, and I've heard this said a lot lately too. The Innovate shows that we do, they're not recorded for production. We currently don't have any production for Innovate. We're working on production, but for the past 2 years, there's really been no production. There was production at the first couple of shows, but as a cost-cutting measure, he cut all that because he wanted to buy his own production equipment. So that's what Tony's been doing. He's been building up a little bit of a budget to buy production equipment, and I think in 2025 it's going to happen. We're going to get production back for Innovate, and it's really going to take off then, because I know what my arena looks like on TV, and it looks gorgeous. I was like, I almost cried the first time I saw it on camera, because I was just like, I did not even mean to make it look that good, and it looks that good.
You put up pictures on social media of it, how it looks. Yeah, I've seen it. Yep. Definitely.
But yeah, when you don't have production, it's hard to get people into storylines, because you have to. It's the thing of, you had to be there. You had to be at the last show to know what's going on this show, and they've got a storyline going on right now that you if you haven't been at the last 6 or 7 or 8 shows, you don't know what's going on. Somebody's got to bring you up to speed. So it's the whole water cooler talk thing. Y'all all got to sit around the water cooler and get up to speed on Innovate Wrestling. What happened in Innovate Wrestling, man? They had a fans bring the weapons match, stuff like that. So it starts conversations and stuff like that. Homegrown grassroots stuff like that, really, really cool. Okay, Tony and Innovate, they have their own crowd. They've been in this area for close to 25 years almost. And
Okay.
he's named the promotion, 3 or 4 different things. It was CWA originally, then it went to NWA Smoky Mountain. That was back when Bruce Tharp was in charge of NWA and was selling territories. And so when Bruce Tharp and Billy Corgan did their whole business deal and the territories went away for that time, NWA Smoky Mountain changed into Innovate Wrestling, which it is now. And then, here we are so many years later. We're here 6-7 years later, and it's Innovate Wrestling, and it's still Tony Givens and his original crew and everything. And they're still consistently drawing 200 to 300 people every show. So it's, and that's monthly. That's monthly we've been drawing that much. So it's really something to see when, a homegrown promotion like Innovate is consistently drawing like that on a monthly basis because of the way the shows are booked. And we were even talking, I heard 2 or 3 different guys talking at the last show we did, and they were just shaking their heads and down at the floor. It's like, this is the best show we've ever done. This is the best show we've ever done. I can't believe this. This is awesome. This is great. And I was like, yeah, y'all, you guys are killing it. What can I tell you? So, and once we get that production factor back, though, I think that'll draw more fans in and everything. So, I'm pretty sure that's going to happen within the next month or 2. We'll be back. We'll be back on the airwaves or the streaming sites or wherever we're at now.
Excellent. That's definitely excellent. Okay, so let's get into booking now. You also have experience in booking.
Yes.
Would you care to tell the fans what promotions you booked for, and give us also an up and down, because a lot of people don't know the ins and outs as far as booking. They just think putting A with B together and let them go. It's a little more detailed than that. So walk us through as far as what it takes to be well, first, let us know your history in booking, and then walk us through what it takes to be a booker.
I've booked, let's see, it was 7 or 8 years in. I was helping book a show. I was helping book the show in Selmer, Tennessee for a little bit. There was, let's see, SOM. I'll just say I'm not with them. I'm not affiliated with them, and I don't choose to be. I helped them with their book for about 4 years straight. And that's Ricky Morton's school. And then I'm currently on the booking committee for NWA JCP with the Kazanas and Dr. Tom and Carson, who's one of our backstage guys. And it's you get a lot of ideas and everything. It's like I said, I grew up watching the Memphis stuff, so obviously I love all the Memphis angles and everything that happened over the years. And there's a lot of recycled stuff. Like the stuff that's happening in WWE right now, I see a lot of Memphis in it. I see a lot of Memphis and Lawler angles and stuff that he did over the years. That's but there's a saying that is brought up a lot in pro wrestling and everything behind the scenes. It says, "What once was old is new again." So if you haven't seen the angle on TV in 20 or 30 years,
right?
There's a whole generation of fans. I was talking with somebody the other day. There's a whole generation of fans who've never seen WCW. There were people born in 2000 who never even knew WCW existed. So they don't know all the gems and everything of matches that existed in WCW that you could go back and watch on the network. So tons of booking and everything, booking decisions over the years and everything. I study stuff like that. I actually went back and watched in chronological order the entire 1997 build to Sting and Hogan at Starrcade in '97. I started at like the end of '96 and went from there. And it, I wanted to try to pinpoint where the booking went wrong.
Uh,
It's like, because you got to the big ending there where it was Sting versus Hogan, and then it just kind of fizzled a little bit. It wasn't great, it wasn't fantastic, but it just kind of died off a little bit there. And then once you had Sting and Hogan, nobody was interested anymore, because they saw the whole Swerve deal and everything. So there's a science to that. There's a lesson to be learned in watching that stuff and what not to do. Um, so there's a lot of it, but yeah, I take a lot of the inspiration from booking from Memphis angles and stuff like that happened over the years, and just it's a process on learning that too. It's hard to explain trying to book a show. Okay. um I'll give you an example here, and I wasn't even involved in the booking on this actually happened at a show I was at. They had like 3 or 4 cancellations on a show, and there wound up only being like 6 wrestlers in the whole locker room, and I was one of the 6, and I was a heel, and there was 3 other guys that were heel, and so they had to figure out a way to flip me like right off the bat, because what it was okay, we're going to have a singles match, we're going to have a singles match, we're going to have a singles match, then we're going to have a 6-man tag at the end, and at least we get 4 matches out of it. So I was like, okay. So I go out there with the heel, being his manager and everything, and I'm like, oh yeah, and get out there and get in the ring and everything, and they immediately turned me face because the guy cheated, and I'm like, no, you can't cheat, and I'm talking to the referee, trying to get the referee to flip the decision and everything, and of course, the heel comes up and he's shoving me and everything, and I shove him down and everything and run him off. We go to the next match, which is me versus another heel, and he comes out doing his thing, and I'm just being real serious and gruff and everything. Well, here comes the other heel that I just pushed down, and he distracts me. He cuts me off and knocks me down and costs me the match, and then next thing I know, they're jumping me. Well, here comes all the faces to save me, and they flip me face like within the first hour of the show. So I mean, it's stuff like that you do on the fly, okay? And it's for the sake of the show, though. You got, and that's the funny thing is, like, I always tell my guys, be face or heel. No, be both, because you don't know what the promoter needs that night. It's like, the best answer you can give, oh, are you a face or are you a heel? What do you need? Because I can be whatever you need me to be. That was my push to every promotion that I ever got booked for. It's like, what do you need me to be? Because I can be whatever you want me to be. I don't care what it is. So, that was just a quick little flip of the booking just to save that night and everything. So, and I wasn't even the booker on that show, but I thought later, I was like, man, that was pretty hot thinking there. All right, cool. So, I'll even give you, and I told you earlier, I worked for Randy Hales. They revived Power Pro Wrestling for a time in Ripley, Tennessee, and I was working for Randy Hales, and he had teamed me up with. They made a new First Family of Wrestling. That was the notorious faction back in the 70s and 80s in Memphis wrestling, was the First Family, and it was Jimmy Hart was the manager, and he must have had 20 guys in the First Family. He was managing every heel on every card, and he was just the biggest, skunk in wrestling and everything, and everybody hated his guts, but he was manager. He was Jimmy Hart, baby. He was Mouth of the South. So, so you fast forward to where I'm at Power Pro, and they teamed me up with Gary and Kevin White, they were staples on Power Pro Wrestling as well. And they team me up with them. They get me and Jeremiah Plunkett together as a tag team, which I loved. Max Corbin, Drew Haskins. We had a huge little clique we were putting together, and so they had to get me into this clique somehow, and go out first match of the night. And Randy comes to me and goes, "All right, Dan, I need you to be big baby face. Get up on the, get these people out of their chairs." I was like, "All right, I'll do it." I go out there, I get everybody hollering and screaming and everything, go into the match and everything. We get people going into our match and everything. Boom, boom, boom. I come out on top, get up on the ropes and everything, and I'm still doing this and everything. Big baby face hype up and everything. Is like, all right, cool. Go back through the curtains and everything. Randy goes, "That was fantastic. Now we're going to turn you heel." And sure
It's like-
enough, into the night, there's a guy getting jumped in the ring, and he finally gets one up on the heel, and he's going to hold the heel while I, come in. While it looks like I'm going to come in and clock the heel,
Right.
I literally go like this. I push the heel out of the way and clock him, and that turned me heel by the end of the night. I mean, it's shotgun booking like that, where you can like literally play with somebody's emotions. You can have them cheering you in the first hour on the first match, and you can have them booing you after the main event's over, and you come out and do something just totally dastardly. So it's, stuff like that. I've been a part of that, and it's awesome, to be a part of that and to take that in and to learn from that. Because like now you realize the psychology of things. And when I first got into wrestling, I didn't understand the psychology of things. I didn't. I thought, I'd just go out here and do moves and it'll be cool, and I didn't understand why we were doing the moves in the spots, in the matches, in the spots where we were doing them in the matches. I didn't understand that. I didn't get that. But as time progressed and everything, because that's where a lot of my guys are at. I'm having to explain to them, this is where you put this, because this is why you do this, and you lead to this build, and you lead to the hot tag, or you lead to the big comeback at the end of the match, or you do this, you do that. So, it's different than booking a show. It's like, what you want as an opener. You want a hot, match as an opener. You want to dictate that pace for the rest of the night. You want to slow it down in the middle a little bit. You want to put you want to put the ones that are slow and deliberate. You want to put them in the middle, and you got your names. You're going to put them at the end. So,
is there anybody that you try to you looked up to, or you try to model yourself after when it came down to booking, or you just dived right into it?
I didn't really try to model myself after anybody booking. Wrestling wise, I wanted to be Dean Malenko. I love Dean Malenko.
Man of 1,000 holes.
Yes, and I actually got to meet Dean backstage at WWE when he was an agent there, and it was so funny because I was backstage with me and my buddy Alan, and we were walking out. We had our bags, and I think Dean was sitting over to the side, was waiting for his ride or something, and we walked past him. And I kind of looked over at Alan, and Alan knew. He knew because I talk about Dean Malenko constantly. And I look over at Alan, I'm smiling, and he kind of looked back at me, and he goes, "You got to go back and talk to him, don't you?" And I was like, "Absolutely." And I was like, "Let's park our bags over here. I need to go say hi to Dean Malenko." So yeah, huge Dean Malenko mark though. Yeah, that's why I got so good at chain wrestling, because like I wanted that to be my thing. And that's one of the things I teach at the school that not very many people do other places is chain wrestling. If anything's a lost art, chain wrestling is a lost art. It really is. And I don't mean chain wrestling like, backflips and stuff like that. I mean like hammer locks to waist locks to, full Nelsons to headlocks to, just wrestling. And that's, I'm trying to bring it back through my guys and show them, different things that, I'm old school to the hilt and everything. There's a lot of takedowns and chain wrestling that I teach that you would actually have to go back and watch black and white film to see it again.
Wow.
That far back. So
when you mentioned that, I'm curious to find out what's your thoughts about Christopher Adams.
Christopher Adams.
That was the one. I believe he trained Steve Austin. He was an Englishman. He trained Steve Austin. That man also was he was a pretty good chain wrestler.
Gentleman
himself.
Chris Adams, yes.
Yes, yes.
Yes. Um, sorry, there's been a lot of Chris Adams. There was like 2 or 3 Chris Adams that came through Memphis. It's like it's almost like Brock's gimmick in Memphis before he went to WWE was Flex Cavana, and he was Flex Cavana and he went on to WWE. What people don't realize was there was 2 or 3 more Flex Cavanas that came through Memphis while he was at WWE. So there's a lot of people who's like Chris Adams, Chris Adams. I've known 6 Chris Adamses. I've known 6 Chris Adamses since I've started in the wrestling business. So yeah, but no, I know exactly who you're talking about. Gentleman Chris Adams. No, he was a wrestler. Yeah. So yeah, throw back to all that stuff. Even Steve Austin, stunning Steve Austin. Coming up in Texas and stuff.
And something funny? You mentioned that a lot of people who grew up and they know about Stone Cold Steve Austin. When you mention that, when you all right, it's one of those things. It's like technical wrestler. Oh, Bret Hart, Dean Malenko, and then you say Stone Cold Steve Austin's like, Stone Cold? What?
Yeah.
Mr. Kick you in the chest and put up middle fingers? Like, no, that's Stone Cold Steve Austin. How about stunning Steve Austin? Who's that?
Go back and watch the Hollywood Blondes. Go back and, yeah.
Oh yeah.
And like watching WCW in like '94. I hated those guys. Oh, I hated those guys. Now watching them now, I'm like, oh, everything they're doing is so crisp. Oh God.
I'm glad you mentioned that because a lot of the stuff too, I wasn't a big WCW fan. I'll be honest with you. My stuff was WWF, WWE. But now looking back at some of the stuff, you appreciate it a whole lot more.
Yes.
Oh,
yes. As somebody who watches it differently now, I appreciate every minute of WCW from late 80s into early 90s, because there was a lot of stuff that went on there that you didn't realize was you were watching some seriously good matches. It was like they concentrated a lot more on the wrestling. They tried to get into the character-based stuff with like WWE was doing and everything, and it just didn't work out. It didn't translate well. So, but they rolled the dice. But they had a lot of good. You look at the guys that were on their rosters, that they had a lot of good wrestling talent. A lot of good wrestling talent at the time. And
my thing is, they tried to bring back to life some of the most memorable matches as far as that WWF had, or WWE, if you want to call it. Like the Mr. Perfect and Bret Hart. I felt like they redid that match. Nothing beats the Mr. Perfect and Bret Hart at SummerSlam. That match was
that match. I credit that match with making me actually want to be a good technical wrestler. I credit that match every single time with me wanting to be a good technical wrestler.
I'm gonna make you laugh. Do you know, before that match, what was the greatest match to me in the history of professional wrestling? It was Macho Man Randy Savage versus Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, WrestleMania 3. That match actually took its place to me. I was like, wow, I finally found a match that actually took its place. Some people may say, no, not really. It's still number one. But yeah, it's man. So listen, tell us about, you've done some charitable works in the community. Tell us about that.
Yes. We've done about 7 or 8 benefit shows here. One of the first ones we did was a cancer benefit show. It was for the widow of a worker, one of the wrestling workers that died here locally from cancer. We raised some money for his widow. We had the Big Mike Memorial Show. Big Mike was a huge wrestling fan locally here, and we raised $1,000 to pay for his funeral at that show. So we did donation drive for the flood victims. We are 30 minutes from the flood zone that happened over in Irwin. Came through Irwin, Tennessee. Elizabethton area. We're 30 to 45 minutes from that area. We never got hit hard. We had high winds, but that was about it. But the rain, uh, there was one section of the mountains that got it might get 15 inches of rain the whole year. It got 15 inches of rain in an hour, and it came down through the mountains and hit the rivers and made the river swell. And if you've watched the news at all about the Tennessee and Asheville floods, it's just absolutely, it's heartbreaking, honestly, when you drive through there right now. You don't realize how much devastation water can do. And it turned a creek into a river. It turned something that was probably the size of a creek into something that was the size of the Mississippi River. It was just unbelievable. So, but Tony Givens with Innovate, he calls me, I think 3 days after it happened, and he was like, "We got to do something." And I was like, "We absolutely do." And he says, "Let's do a benefit show, and let's just make admission whatever people want to bring for donations." And we had a list of everything that the relief centers were taking in, and the fire departments and everything that local. We had a list of stuff that they needed desperately, and people just we wanted, our goal was to fill up the ring trailer. We've got a 16-foot flatbed ring trailer, and our goal was to fill up the ring trailer, and we did it. We absolutely 100% did it. We were actually stacking stuff up on the trailer to make more room for other stuff. So it was fantastic. And we took that over to the Bloomingdale Fire Department, Bloomingdale Volunteer Fire Department that was right down the road. And we donated it just a few days after the show and everything. And then we turned around a month later and did a benefit show for Asheville. Our brothers over at Urban Combat Wrestling, Spaceman Jones, Mook, they all, we're all good friends and everything. And they came over because Asheville was still recovering. They could not run a show in Asheville. It's, really on the fence whether they still can or not. They did run another benefit show this past month, and raised about $600 or $700, I believe, for flood victims and stuff. They came over to our place and raised about the same, and ran a show here for Asheville. And then did right after the first of the year, we've got a benefit show January 4th, and it's the McKee benefit show. It's for one of my students. His aunt passed away, and she was actually the one that would bring him to Tony Givens's wrestling shows 20 years ago and got him started in wrestling. So, it's full circle stuff like that, man. I don't want to be just a wrestling school. I want to be a beacon to the community, and be that light that is a safe house at the community. We've got 3 different sponsors that are drug addiction programs. We've got Carter County Drug Prevention, we've got Recovery Resources, and we've got Bridge to Shore. And Recovery Resources, they do addiction counseling, and Carter County Drug Prevention, they do the same. Bridge to Shore helps endangered women who are in abusive situations, helps them get out of those situations, and helps them with addictions as well. And we've got other sponsors too as well who've hopped on, Bagel Exchange, Luna's Roofing and Repair, and Lazy J Farms, who is a butcher shop who's right down the road from us in Bloomingdale here as well. So we're helping out local businesses get the word out about their business, and we're also helping the community as well by getting the word out about drug addictions and getting the help out there for those people in those situations as well. And meantime, we're raising money on benefit shows as well. So You know, it's amazing, amazing to me how much we're involved in community. You know, we were just in the Christmas parade last weekend. Me and my wife built a float for the Christmas parade. It was all snowmen and lit up when they were dancing around Christmas trees and stuff like that and everything. And I probably somewhere around the neighborhood of 10 to 20,000 people were out on the street and saw us as a business, you know, and
Thanks.
that's just because we choose to be a part of the community. So, you know, tons of people looking at us going, "Oh man, I got to go see a wrestling show." And then a bunch of kids, I heard a ton of kids going, "Snowman," because we had a bunch of lit up snowmen on the truck and everything. So, you know, but I love being able to take Net Pro and pro wrestling and do that with it, because that's, you know, a buddy of mine. I was on another podcast with a buddy of mine, Jeff Baker, and here comes the sun. Um, I was on a podcast called the Whiskey Ain't Working Anymore podcast, and it's actually a podcast for Recovery Resources, one of our sponsors. And I was on there with Jeff Baker, and I was talking about what we're doing and everything, and just tell him, hey, you know, NetPro's a family. And Jeff stopped me. He goes, no, he goes, dude, you've created a culture. You've created a freaking culture of, you know, this is what pro wrestling is supposed to be. And, you know, that's when I started realizing it was like, I'm being successful at this. I'm pulling this off because, you know, I'm putting it out there as like, hey, this is what wrestling's supposed to be. You know, this is what a wrestling company is supposed to do. This is what, you know, this is what how people are supposed to be active in their communities and stuff like that when they can be. So, you know, you change that culture, you change that way of thinking, and, you know, other people follow suit. Other companies may follow suit, you know. So, but yeah, it's been crazy the amount of benefit shows we've done. I would say if I had to put a number on it, we've probably done between $15,000 and $20,000 worth of charitable, raising money and getting it back into the community for whatever cause we're going after. So I'd say within 2 years, that's a reasonable estimate, probably between $15,000 and $20,000.
Wow, not bad at all. Definitely not bad at all.
Yeah, I kept thinking about it. I was like, you know, how much, because I remembered the stuff that we took in for donations too. You know, it was like I put price tags on that stuff too, because there wasn't just like water and you know, food items. There was clothes and stuff like that. You know, there was people that went through their closets and cleaned out their clothing and everything that they hadn't worn in 20 or 30 years that they hadn't even opened. There was unopened shirts and unopened stuff like that they were just like, we've never worn this here, you know. And they put it to a good use. So,
well, let me ask you, if there's something that you've learned that you didn't know back then that you know now, what would it say it would be? As far as in your whole road to wrestling and everything else that you've done, even in the charitable work, whichever, something that you could say that, you know, if I've known this back then, I would have probably been, not say better, or maybe better off, or maybe in a different position, or I don't know.
If I had to give myself a piece of advice 16 years ago, I would say just be patient. Just be patient. Because I was impatient when I first started, and you know, the Memphis area, as steeped in history as it was at the time that I started, that history had kind of, you know, and there was time and time again, and I actually did it once or twice. I went and worked for Jerry Lawler because he was trying to revive Memphis television. He was trying to get a TV station to go back on the air with Memphis wrestling, and he filmed pilot episodes and stuff like that to show to TV studios and stuff like that. and nothing would have ever come of it and everything. And with that happening, that kind of got me down on Memphis wrestling. It really did, because I realized like nothing is going to be as good as what it was. It's like, but that be patient frame of mind, it can be good eventually. It can be good eventually. It's just like, it may not be the right time or the right place for certain things. It just didn't seem to fit together for Lawler and trying to bring TV back into Memphis and stuff like that when I was doing it. It just might not be the right time, and the cards just don't fall right sometimes. But you got to be patient and just ride it out sometimes. So, honestly, you could ask me if I have any regrets, and that would probably fall in that same wheelhouse. I don't have regrets. I don't, because like I said before, bad experience, good experience, it's still an experience. Okay. And you're going to learn, people are going to take advantage of you. Oh yeah. It's the wrestling business. People are going to take advantage of you. So it's just, you live and you learn, you learn from that, who takes advantage of you and everything. And I tell people all day long, I can forgive people 100% of the time. Will I ever work with them again and give them an opportunity to do what they did before? Absolutely not. I can forgive you all day long, but that don't mean I'm going to go right back into the situation that caused the problem in the first place. So, but yeah, it's learning to navigate and everything. And the bad stuff, the bad stuff, you got to take the bad stuff to get to the good stuff. And that's what I would probably tell myself 16 years ago. You got to take the bad stuff to get to the good stuff. Because there was a lot of places that sometimes I was like, man, I wish I'd never been there. But then I go back and I look at it and, say I never went to Ken's. I'd have never learned how to chain wrestle. I'd have never learned this whole process that I'm putting out into the universe now. I'd have never met Downtown Bruno, who's Harvey Whippleman, who's The Rock's best friend, who is now my best friend. I'd have never met, Bobby Eaton and made good friends with Bobby Eaton, if I'd have never went to Ken's, and that's the thing, is like, you got to take the bad with the good. It's not all good. It's not all sunshine and rainbows. It's some dark stuff out there, and you just got to learn to navigate it. That's all it is. So, but yeah, that would probably be the biggest solid piece of advice I'd give myself 16 years ago, starting out. Just like, you got to take the bad with the good.
Now, let me ask you, coming up in this business, what are some of the worst advice that you could say that you've received that you was like, that's not necessarily so, especially having your experience that you have? Like, what have been one of the worst advice that you've received?
Let me think here.
Don't tell me who.
I wouldn't necessarily call it bad.
Okay.
I would call it outdated. Okay. I would call it outdated. I won't call it bad. And I, like I said, I won't mention names or anything like that, but
No.
because like I don't pick fights in the locker room either. If somebody wants to give me their version of what should have happened in a match or whatever, I'm totally all for listening to it and everything. And I'm always respectful of, other people's opinions and everything. But, there's a lot of guys that, they think they don't need to train. I've heard that a lot lately. I don't need to train.
Yeah.
I know enough to get to the big show. Oh, really? Okay. So why are you still wrestling for $20 at the same show you've been wrestling at for the past 5 years? Okay. So yeah. So yeah, not necessarily, bad advice, just bad decisions sometimes. So
Right,
sorry, I'm trying to
right.
plug my phone in here. I don't want it to die on me. So
Oh,
there we go.
okay. Oh, wow. Damn, that's
So, but yeah, there's a lot of more bad decisions that I've noticed than actual bad advice. So, you remember back to when Randy Orton was doing the punt kick and
yes,
was punting people in the head and everything.
yes.
There was a match that was at Ken's where a guy, and it was completely by accident. There was a guy on his knees and the other guy was on the floor, and he thought he could jump up and hit an enziguri just real quick. He was laying on his back and he thought he could just pop up and hit an enziguri right quick. And he was off, and the toe of his boot went right into the eye socket and fractured a guy's eye socket. And they they were talking about it in catering at WWE, and brought it up, and the guy that did it was there. He brought him up, and they were laughing with Randy about it, and said, hey, Randy, this guy's doing your punt gimmick. And they were like, oh, what, why are you doing that? That's dangerous. Why would you do that? And goes, oh, well, yeah, he fractured a guy's eye socket and everything. And so then, Randy straight up is asking the guy, it's like, why would you ever do that? That's a dangerous move. You should never do that. And he looks Randy straight in the eye and goes, the guy had it coming. And Randy looked up, turned around, and walked away. Never said another word. So, there's just, I was there for that. I saw that. And I'm like, oh my God, really? Did you just say that? Okay. So, and, there's just bad decisions, not necessarily bad advice, but bad decisions. So I've seen more bad decisions than I've seen bad advice.
This is the thing. You see, when you make a statement like that, the wrestling world is a very small world, as big as
Yes.
people think it is. Now, you don't know where you might end up at, and you made a statement like that, and Randy Orton is around. All it takes is one bad word coming from him.
Yes.
You're finished.
And honestly, I felt bad for the guy that said it. I did, because it was just, it was just off kilter. He was just trying to be cool at the time, and he thought that was the thing to say. And I was just like, yeah, I don't think that was the thing to say.
Wow. So, okay. So when you have your students, you pretty much teach them the bad and the good of what to expect. An example, and because I've seen this happen before, and you've mentioned it, you've touched upon it. You have a promotion. You're not your own promotion, but your students are in the promotion, and there's a legend inside the locker room, man. He's giving them you shouldn't have done this, you shouldn't have done that, and you're around. What do you do in that situation? Because they immediately look at you because you're their teacher. They're like, so what?
I tell them always respect everybody's opinion. Don't ever go in there and be like, no, that's wrong. That's wrong. That's wrong. And start an argument that way. It was like, I tell them, learning who to take advice from, that's a learning process too. So, there's been plenty of times we've had seminars, or we've had an old school guy in the building or whatever, and he rakes them over the coals for doing something, which that's people's teaching styles. That's people's teaching styles a lot of times too. So I can't fault them for having that teaching style and everything, but at the same time, I'm just like, he's right in a way, but there's a lot of people that there's and that's that old school mentality too. Like, it has to be this way. It has to be this way. There's no other way. There's no other way. There's a right and a wrong way, and you just did it wrong. And there's that mentality a lot of times, and I don't go for that.
Right.
I go for, yes, that's a different way of doing that, but please make sure you're doing it safe. It's like, if it makes sense, and I try to keep an open mind. When I first started, I had that mentality of, this is wrong and this is right drilled into me. And, believe me, there's a lot of wrong ways to do things. There's a lot of wrong ways to do things, but there's certain things that you have to do right. You have no choice about it,
Right.
getting your feet underneath you in the ring and turning and getting up the right direction, feeding in for something the right way, just different things like that. There's definitely a wrong way to do all of that, so, but it's considered the basics. So if your basics are wrong, basics are universal. The basics are something that everybody teaches. Like, left foot forward, right foot back, right foot forward, left foot back. It's basics across the board for everybody. Dr. Tom, best at the basics. Couldn't teach you how to do a spinning, brain buster or anything like that, but he knows where your feet are supposed to go and where they're supposed to be and how you're supposed to feet up and how many steps you're supposed to take across the ring, and, can get you there, but it's, that's the thing, is like that old school mentality of this is right and this is wrong. But I always tell my guys, is like, if anybody comes up to you like that, just be like, yeah, okay, sure. Yes. Thank you.
Very good.
And move on, because it's a whole lot easier to do that than to sit there and try to convince somebody of a different way. It's like the old school mentality and that mentality and everything is just, I don't want to say it's a thing of the past, and I don't want to say it's completely wrong either. What I want to say is there is a different way to do things, and there's a different way of doing everything, but there are certain things that you can't do the wrong way, and it's got to be corrected, footwork especially. So, but I'm always respectful. I'm always respectful in everything, and any of the guys that come up and start grating any of my guys, and I'm just like, just listen to what he says, and you either you take it to heart and you use it, or it goes in one ear and it goes out the other. But there's no sense in arguing with anybody. If they want to come up and tell you that was wrong or whatever, it's like, try it their way. Try it their way one time and just see if they're right or wrong, or to see if you can even do it the way that they were saying you could do it. So, I just try to tell my guys, keep an open mind, and if anybody, as long as they're respectful to you, that's the line, if they come up and they're, be respectful back to them no matter what, but, and that's like the number one compliment I've gotten from all of my guys too, is like, my guys are so respectful. It's like a breath of fresh air, because like people can come up and tell them, they're asking the promoter to watch their match and just tell them if they can do anything differently and stuff like that. And, my guys are keeping an open mind. They're showing up early. They're helping set up the ring, set up chairs. They're staying late. They're helping break the ring down and pull the chairs back up and everything. So, and I've done all this. I've told them, it's like, I'm 16 years in, I'm still setting the ring up. Okay. Because I want to hurry up and get this show over with. They were like, I got shit to do. Yeah.
Pretty much, I like your style, because it's like you teach your students more of a diplomatic way than a combative way, and that's very important, very, very important.
There's no sense in just, like I said, I'm not one to rock the boat. I'm the one that, you point the boat in the direction that you want to go in, and I'll make sure it goes that way.
Right. Right. Gotcha. So before we go off the air, well, once we go off the air, as far as recording wise, just hang with me for a couple of seconds, because I want to discuss some stuff with you. But before we go off the recording air, anything you want to promote to the fans? Your school?
NetPro Studios on Facebook. We are on Instagram. We are on. I'm on TikTok too. I do TikTok and I do Facebook, and my wife does Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. So, make sure you guys are watching the new NWA Power episodes that come out every Tuesday on X. Make sure, watch all the NWA JCP stuff on YouTube. I'm the commentator and, booking committee. I'm on the booking committee and head commentator for NWA JCP. NWA, we're going to Dothan, Alabama this weekend. Actually, I'm hauling the ring cage down there to Dothan, Alabama. I'll be gone all weekend down there in beautiful Dothan, Alabama. And I'm pretty sure. Crazy thing, we were in Dothan, Alabama, like six months ago, and they sold front row for this show before they left the building. So, and we were creeping up on 3,000 people in the building at the last show. So now we're going back. Who knows what we'll draw on this one, because that building does hold like 5,000 people that we're going to. So there ain't no telling what we'll draw. But I'll be down in Dothan helping set the ring cage up in between matches and hauling the ring cage down there and back as well. And spending the weekend with Billy Corgan and Joe Galley and Kyle Davis and all that lovely NWA bunch. And
before we go off there, I'm sorry, you mentioned Billy Corgan. Any stories you could share about him? Anything you?
I got to go on tour with Smashing Pumpkins, man. We did NWA shows in the promenade of the amphitheaters that the Smashing Pumpkins concerts were at. I went on tour with Billy Corgan and Smashing Pumpkins. It was crazy. I drove the ring trailer for the entire week too. So we started in Huntsville, Alabama. We went to West Palm Beach, Florida. We went to Tampa, Florida, and then we came back up to Charlotte. And every single time we had matches in the promenade, it was between sets because they had 3 bands that were playing. So it was between sets that we would actually have the matches and everything. So we'd get in early, we'd set the ring up in the concession stand area, and we'd have 2 matches, a band would play. Everybody would go and watch the band play. Then they'd change sets, change everything for the next act. In the meantime, we have 2 more matches. Then they come back and they got the next band, and then they come back over and they're setting thing up for Smashing Pumpkins at the end of the night, and we have 2 more matches, and then they go back and they watch Billy Corgan. And while I'm breaking the ring down, I'm listening to Smashing Pumpkins play live. So pretty cool. So yeah, it's kind of surreal when you get to do stuff like that. It's just nuts. It really is. And all credit to Joe Kazana, because that was one of the things he told me starting out. We got to become that NWA territory. We were JCP before. We were doing YouTube productions and everything, putting everything on YouTube. And then the next thing you know, Billy Corgan comes along and he goes, "Yeah, you guys are coming with us. We're going to be NWA." And I was like, "All right, okay." So, and what was really crazy to me and how I knew things were becoming a reality was in Charlotte. We got to sit down, and we had just finished putting the ring up, and Billy Corgan came out there and actually physically watched us put the ring together and everything. And then he wanted to come over to the side and talk to Joe Kazana for a minute. And it was like, this is the deal, it was like EC3's got his Exodus Pro promotion that is his school that's up in Ohio. And he's our first NWA territory, and NWA JCP is going to be the second one. And it took off from there, man. It was literally a year ago this month that we became NWA JCP. And for that show, I got to sit next to the CEO of NWA, Joe Galley, and do commentary. If you look at if you want to look back at it, it's the December shows that hit for 2023. How Coalfield Stole Christmas shows that are on the NWAJCP YouTube channel. And if you go back and you watch those, right in the middle of the show, Joe Galley comes out. He brings Billy Corgan out, and we become NWAJCP. And it's off to the races after that. So, I mean, it's just everything. When they do that, it's like all your titles are NWA recognized titles. Everything changes. So it's crazy to have that kind of involvement and, to be there for that changeover. I'm literally sitting at the commentary desk with Joe Galley, the CEO of NWA, doing commentary for that show.
I got a question for you. Are you a combat sports fan?
Yeah!
Whether it's boxing, wrestling, or mixed martial arts. It's all combat sports. So show your support and order the Step Into the Squared Circle merch. How do you do that? It's real simple. Just go to dondavine@gmail.com. That's DONDAVINE@gmail.com. And we're going to need your Cash App name. We're going to need your full name. We're going to need your mailing address and t-shirt size, as well as t-shirt color. It comes in black and athletic gray. And after you're done doing that, you can send your payment to $Don Davine. That's $DONDAVINE. Get it done, because
That's an order.
So, okay. So pretty much, is it safe to say that you've now become a farming system, so to speak, as far as for NWA?
My guys have been on NWAJCP. Yeah.
Okay.
They've actually gotten tryout matches in front of Billy Corgan as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good. Very good.
So, yeah. My guys did there's a couple of my guys that have done clinics with Dr. Tom and Joe Kazana and everything. And, they've come down and worked security for NWAJCP, and then that led to them being involved in the show as well and being booked on the show. So yeah.
Oh, unbelievable.
Yeah. I just, I've told the guys plenty of times, is like, just be patient. I'll get you on something. It's like even the Innovate shows, I've got a rotation going where I know where guys are overdue to be back on the show. And, I'll work them in and tell Tony, these guys need to be used. So
pretty much the fact that you're known in that territory, there's never a shortage of work. Definitely never.
No, never a shortage of work. Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Wow, that's
the
reason.
NetPro Studios on Facebook page, and NetPro Studios Pro Wrestling Training LLC is what we are on Facebook. There's a big giant arm that does this on our on our emblem. So if you found the arm, you've found the right page. So it's Dan at NetPro on TikTok. It's NetPro Studios on Twitter. I don't know what our Instagram is, but we are on Instagram. So I'm sure if you type in NetPro Studios, it'll probably pick it up pretty quick. So. But yeah, we're all over social media. We take clips from shows and put it up there that our guys are on, and I think we've shared the YouTube video of the Christmas parade this past weekend as well. So
okay, I'm gonna check it out. Definitely, I'm gonna check it out. Yep.
Yeah.
Oh man, Dan, listen, man, it's been nice talking to you.
Nice talking to you. I gotta go. They keep calling me, man. They're wondering where I'm at. I'm like, oh.
Oh man, no, I got you. Sorry I kept you this long.
Oh, you're good. It's good talking to you. Catching up with you there, man.
Oh yeah. So listen, if anything, on behalf of Pro Wrestling Syndicate and Dan Jones, this has been the business in pro wrestling. Hope you guys enjoy. Till next time.